So basically, what we're doing today is a review of sequences of what we were doing. Thanks, Elizabeth, of what we were doing before break. So we're just going to do a review of it to refresh our minds because it's been 2 weeks and, you know, it's been a long time. So the first thing was to decide whether it was a geometric or arithmetic sequence and then find the next 3 terms. Remember the difference between geometric and arithmetic. Arithmetic, I'm adding or subtracting the same thing. And geometric, I'm multiplying the same thing. So that's how I can tell the difference between the two. So I'm going to say, how do I get from this term to this term, right? What am I doing every time? Well, on this one, I am adding 3. So this is arithmetic sequence. And then the next 3 terms would be 25 plus 3 is 28. And then 31 and 34. Okay? And then if I look at these ones, what am I doing every time? Well, I could say adding 2, but 4 plus 2 is not 6, so I'm not adding 2. So the other way to get from 2 to 4 would be multiply by 2, and 2 times 4 is 8, and 8 times 2 is 16. So I'm multiplying by 2 every time. So this means this is a geometric, and I probably totally spelled that wrong. And then let's see, my next 2 terms, 256 times 2 is 512. Times 2 is 124. Sorry, 1024. And then times 2 is 2048. Okay? Is there any questions on those? Okay, so we just have a few notes. And we're going to talk about, first we're going to talk about an arithmetic sequence. Arithmetic sequence is a sequence in which the difference, right, the difference between the consecutive terms is constant. That means I'm adding or I'm subtracting the same numbers all the time. It's constant. It's the same number. The difference between them is the same. So if I look at my example, let's see. Jasmine Enriquez. If we look at our example that I have here, let's go to the next thing before we talk about the example. Sorry, I was trying to figure out which way I wanted to go. It says what is needed to write an equation. So what things do I need to find from my sequence before I can write equations for them? Well, there's 3 things I need to find. I need to find the common difference because this is an arithmetic sequence, the starting term, and the zeroth or initial term. Okay, so a couple different things there. So if I have my my sequence right here, and I'm just going to turn it into a table. Remember when we turned it into a table? There's my first term, second term, third term, fourth term, fifth term, 6th term, and then I need to find my 0th term and my common difference. So what's happening? How do I get from 0 to 5 and 5 to 10 and 10 to 15, 15 to 20, 20 to 25? What am I doing every time? What's that, Ketlin?
You're adding 5?
I'm adding 5. That is correct. Very good. So I'm adding 5. And if I'm adding 5 every time, what do I add 5 to get 0? So what's my 0th term?
One.
So 1 plus 5 is 0?
0.
Nice. Try again. So 0 plus 5 is 0? Remember, we're adding, not multiplying. Yes, Esther, good. You can also think about it this way, you guys. If I'm going this direction, right, I'm adding 5. But if I go this direction, what do? I subtract 5. So 0 minus 5 would be what? Did that help a little bit thinking of it that way? Negative 5. Okay. So my 0th term is negative 5. And my starting term, The starting term is the first term in my sequence. And, oh, you guys. Let me see if I can erase this without erasing too much stuff. My starting term is the first term in the sequence, which in this case happens to be 0, right? And I think that's all the information we need to write an equation. So we have two different equations. Sorry, you guys, I can't talk. We have two different types of equations. Remember, we have the recursive equation and we have the explicit equation. And the recursive equation says, if I have 5 and I add 5 to it, what's my next term, right? And if I have 10 and I add 5 to it, what's my next term? I have to know my previous term in order to get my next term. And that's what a recursive equation says. So if I fill in my information here, what do I have? Well, I have, let me get my highlighter out again here. I have my common difference. That's what I need to fill in. And I need to fill in my starting term. Everything else in this equation stays exactly the same. The only two things I'm substituting in on here is my common difference and my starting term. Okay? So everything else stays exactly the same. Well, let's put it exactly the same. F of x equals f of x minus 1. And my common difference is plus 5, so plus 5. And then my f of 1 equals my starting term, which we wrote down, is 0. And that's it. I found the three things I needed to know, which is my common difference, my starting term, and my 0th or initial term, whichever you want to call it. You'll hear it both as the 0th term or the initial term. And then I'm just going to substitute in the recursive equation, I need my common difference and my starting term. And then I just substitute those two values in. That's it, done. And for my explicit, I'm going to do the same thing. My explicit equation says, what does my explicit equation say? F of x equals mx plus b, where m equals cd, or my common difference, and b is the 0th term or initial term, 0th or initial term. So I know what my cd is, I know what my common difference is, and I know what my 0th term is, right? We have it right up here. Here's my common difference, great, and here's my 0th term, and I'm going to use those two in this equation. So all I'm going to do is substitute in wherever there's an m and a b. So I've got f of x equals m is my common difference, which is 5, and I still have to have the x there. The x has to be there. And then my 0th term is negative 5. And that's it, mx plus b. Okay, so we're going to go down to some examples here. I'm going to kind of try and leave that up there so you can see it too. Okay, so I have a table here. I have a sequence. Number 1, I'm going to turn it into a table. Right, I have my first term, second term, third term, fourth term, fifth term. I need to know my 0th term. So my common ratio is what? What am I doing to get to each term? Raise your hand or something on your screen if you don't understand how to find out what the common difference is. So everyone can find the common difference. So that's what I'm asking you for right now. What is the common difference? Good, Alex. Good, Esta. Roberto, you are so close. Come on, everybody needs to put an answer in the chat box. Yes, Roberto. Yes, Sialeg, nice. What's my common difference? How am I getting from from -5 to -7, and -7 to -9, and -9 to -11, and -11 to -13? It's called a common difference. What's that common difference? Yes, Jonathan. Yes, Monica, good. Good, you guys. So what am I doing this time? My common difference is subtracting 2, right? And I can just write it as -2 or subtract 2. Doesn't matter. Either one is correct, okay? And then I need to know my starting point, right? And is it okay if I just call it SP for starting point? I put starting term above starting term, starting point, same thing. So what's my starting point? Well, my starting point is the first term. Pretty easy, right? Starting point's my first term. So that is -5. And then I need to know my 0th term. My 0th term. So what's my 0th term? Nice, Esta, good. And Alex, yeah, you were right on that. So can someone else tell me, everybody else tell me what my 0th term is? So if my first term is -5, what would my 0th term be?
-5.
So if my first term is -5, I can't have, my 0th term can't be the same term, the same number. I want the one before -5. Nice, Esta.
-3.
Yes, Yali, great. -3, perfect. -3. Okay, now I have all the information. Remember, now I have all the information for my 2 equations. I'm just going to write them in there now. So I've got my explicit, I'm just going to write it over here. So I've got my explicit, nope. We want to do not the explicit first, sorry. We want to do, what do we want to do first? Recursive. And then we're going to do we're going to do explicit right underneath it. So we're not going to. Explicit. Okay? So my recursive equation is going to be, let's see, what is it going to be? Remember, all of it stays the same. F of x equals f of x minus 1. And then what do I have? My common difference, which in this case is -2. And then I have f of 1 equals, and what I'm doing, just so you guys know, is I'm looking right here at this one right here, and I'm just filling in the information, right? So I'm doing that equation right there. F of 1 equals my starting point, which was -5. Okay. And then for the explicit equation, I'm just, oops, oh, hate it when I do that, you guys. I'm just going to follow this one right here and do what this one says. Exactly, okay? So I'm going to make it look just like that. So it should be f of x equals, let's see, what does it equal? Oh, I did not give myself enough room in these little teeny spaces to find everything we needed. F of x equals my common difference, sorry, which is -2x, and then plus my starting point, which is -3. And then the last thing it asked me to do, which I guess I need to find some space to do it in, is find a of 100, right? So I guess I'm going to come over here because I need to have that space there. So I'm going to find f of 100. That's going to be -2 times 100 minus 3, which is -200 minus 3, which equals -203. Done. Okay? So we're going to do exactly the same thing for number 2. Okay, so I'm going to make a table here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 0. I need to know my common difference. I don't know why I put an R there. Wow. It's been too long. Let's just say that. Let's see if I can fix this. No, it's not going to let me. Common difference. Common difference. There we go. My common difference. So how am I getting from 16 to 23, 23 to 30,
Adding
30 to
7.
37? Adding 7. Very good. Yep. And then my starting point is the first term, which is 16. And then my 0th term is, what would my 0th term be?
9.
9. Yep, good. Nice job, Siale. Good. And then I'm just going to fill it into my two equations. I still have them up there on the screen. So I'm going to say f of x equals f of x minus 1 plus 7. And f of 1 equals 16. Very nice. And then we've got for my explicit equation, I've got f of x equals my common difference, which is 7x, plus my starting term, which is plus 9. I'm sorry, my initial term, or 0th term, which is plus 9. And then they want me to find, let's see, where do I have space to do that at? I think I have space up here. F of 100 is going to be 7 times 100 plus 9. So I get 700 plus 9 equals 709. Okay, questions on that? Okay, so you guys are going to try, I'm going to give you a couple minutes to try A and B. I'm going to try and keep everything on the screen here for you. So you've got, what do you think? Do you think 5 minutes is long enough, or do you need a little bit longer than 5 minutes? You guys tell me. Shall we start with 5 minutes and then go from there? Okay, guys, so here we go. If I make my table here, right? 3, 4, 0. My common difference is subtract 2. That means my 0th term is going to be 23. My starting point is 21. My 0th term is 23. So I've got, what do I have over here? Recursive and explicit. So I do want to say, for those of you in the chat box who only wrote down one, either the explicit or the recursive. Oh, sorry, Yatziri, I'm so sorry that you said, I read that too late. The only did recursive or explicit. The directions are find the recursive and the explicit and A of 100. So you have 3 things to do. You have quite a bit to do. So we just need to get all of that done in okay, so that's, I can't even talk today, but that's what we need to make sure we're getting done, okay? So my recursive equation, subtract 2, f of 1 equals my starting term, 21. Is going to equal -2, going to equal -2 times 100 plus 23, which equals -200 plus 23, which is going to equal -177. think that's correct. I did it in my head, so I hope it's right. Yeah, that should be right. Okay. Negative 22. Okay, negative 422. Okay, so that's it for arithmetic sequences. Look, I can't even think what we're talking about. Arithmetic sequences. Now we're going to go on to the second part, which is the last lesson we got done, which is reviewing. So this is what we just got done kind of going over was 7.2 and part of 7.1 kind of go together. So 7.1 kind of goes with 7.1, 7.2 and 7.3. It's kind of split between the two. So we kind of did part of 7.1 and 7.2. Now we're going to go to the rest of 7.1 and 7.3. Okay, so this is a review for module 7 that we did before we left. And so, and make sure you guys, if I'm going too fast or you have questions, you're writing them in the chat box, okay? We're going to move on to geometric sequences now. And geometric sequence is a sequence of numbers where each term after the first is found by multiplying the previous by the same number. So remember, now I'm multiplying, and it doesn't say divide, it just says multiply. So if I decide it's a divide problem, I have to make sure I change that into multiply. Okay? So and how do we do that? We change it, we put it in fraction form. So we'll talk about that when we get there. So we're multiplying by the same number every time. So I have an example again. We're going to still find the same things. This time, instead of a common difference, we're finding a common ratio. We're still going to find our starting term, which is pretty easy. And then our zeroth or our initial term. And that one can be sometimes a little tricky when we're talking about multiplying and dividing. That one can sometimes be a little more tricky. So I'm going to take my sequence and turn it into a table again, right? By doing first term, second term, third term, fourth term, fifth term, sixth term, and I need my zeroth term. So my common ratio is, what am I doing here? This one's for you guys. Ready? What am I doing every time? How do I get from 1 to -3, -3 to 9, 9 to -27, -27 to 81, 81 to -243? We know we're multiplying because we know this is geometric sequence. So what am I multiplying by every time? That's my question to you guys. What am I multiplying by every time? Yes, Monica, good. So, nice. Someone said 1, and I want to just talk about that. I'm not going to say who said it, but I just want to talk about if I multiply by 1, if I multiply 1 by 1, what's 1 times 1? Is it -3? That's what you need to ask yourself. So what do I, so is 1 times 1 -3? No. So then you could think of it this way. This is how you could ask yourself this, is what do I multiply 1 by to get -3? 1 times what number equals -3? Does that help a little bit? Nice, Roberto. Or what do I multiply -3 by to get 9? There's it doesn't matter. I can just pick any of the two numbers and say, what do I multiply the first number by to get the second number? So I've got 3 people with answers in. Yes, Roberto. So my common ratio, we're just going to go ahead and go then. My common ratio is -3, because 1 times -3 is -3. And -3 times -3 is +9. And +9 times -3 is -27. So what am I doing every time? I am multiplying by -3. Oh, -3. Multiplying by -3. Okay? Does that help? And then I need to find, my starting term, someone already said that. My starting term is just the first term. My starting term is always just the first term. That one should be pretty easy. In this case, it happens to be 1. Okay. Now my 0th term is going to be a little harder. What number, and I kind of think of it this way. It says, when I've been asking you this question, I say, what number do I multiply -3 by to get 1, right? I can say that. I can say, what number, so some number, let's just say y. What number do I multiply -3 by to get 1? Okay, so what number, I just said y. I didn't know what number, I don't know what number it is, so I'm going to use a variable, so I used y. Do I multiply -3 by, so that's -3 times y, to get my answer of 1. Well, to solve for that, I would divide by -3, right? So my answer is what? -1/3. And that's why sometimes getting my 0th term is a little tricky. So this would be -1/3. Sometimes it gets a little tricky. Okay, because I'm not just subtracting and adding this time. I'm actually multiplying and dividing. Okay. So, but just like on the arithmetic sequence, all I'm going to do is substitute in. So I'm going to put my common ratio here, and then my starting term or starting point goes here, and that's it. And then I'm done. I don't have a lot of extra stuff I have to do. Everything else stays the same. It's kind of just like the arithmetic. Everything stays the same except for those two pieces. Times, and I can either use the times, the little star times, right? I can use parentheses means times. I could write the -3 in front of it. I could write it like this. Okay, that's perfectly legal. Either one of those is great. Okay, just however you want to put times, and then a semicolon, and it looks like a really ugly J. Let's try that again. F of 1, and my first term is 1, so f of 1 equals 1. And I don't care which way you write it. I don't care. Pick one. Pick whichever one is your favorite and do it that way, and then that way you're fine. But no, because sometimes, let's just say like on our end of the year test that we need to take, Sometimes you'll see it one way. Sometimes you'll see it the first way, and sometimes you'll see it the second way. So you need to know how to interpret it, okay? And then my explicit equation, right? All I'm substituting in is for A and B. Well, what does A and B stand for? Well, A is my 0th term, and B is my common ratio. Okay, awesome. So that means I'm going to have f of x is going to equal my starting term, which is -1. Oops. Oh, my land. Okay. Is going to be -1/3 times my common ratio, which is -3 to the x power. Okay, so this one gets a little harder to type into the chat. Oh, I just dropped my pen. Sorry, you guys. Let me find out where it went. Just dropped the Apple pen. Okay. Can't write on the iPad without it. So if I'm typing this into my chat box, I would type it in this way, right? F of x equals -1 divided by 3, and then times -3 to the x power. So that's what it would look like, okay? This one's a little harder to type in because we've got an exponent involved in there, so it's going to look a little differently. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to do these 2 problems, and then you have 2 problems to do. We're just going to go from there, okay? So I'm going to make a table just like what I did. And I don't know why I did it that way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 0. So my common ratio, well, what am I getting? How am I getting from 9 to 18, 18 to 36, 36 to 72? 9 times 2 is 18. Yeah, so my common ratio should be 2. My starting point is 1. No, sorry, is 9. Because I did something weird with the table. Is 9. And my 0th term is I'm going to take that 9 and I'm going to divide 4.5. Great. Or I'm just going to write it as a fraction, which would be 4 halves. Okay? I'm sorry, 9 halves. 9 halves gives me 4.5. Okay? So now I have all the information. I only need those 3 bits of information to write my equations, and I need to write my recursive, my explicit. Okay, so here we go. So my recursive, right, is going to be f of x equals f of x minus 1 times 2, and f of 1 equals 9. And my explicit is going to be f of x is going to equal my 0th term, which is 9 halves. 9, looks like an A. 9 halves times 2 to the x power. Okay, and then they want me to find f of 7. Okay, so that's going to be 9 halves times 2 to the 7th power, which is, what's 2 to the 7th power? That's a good question. Let's see. Turn. Why does it say it's locked? It's not locked. Oh, okay. I hate that calculator anyways, you guys. Let's go to Desmos. There we go. So it's going to be 9 halves times 2 to the 7th power is 128 times 128, which is going to be times 9 divided by 2. 576. Okay. Whew. So if we go to number 2 and we make a table, I'm not going to do this weird one again like I did on that one. Here's my table. My common ratio is I'm dividing by -3. But I don't want to divide. Remember, my definition is multiplication. So my common ratio is -1/3. It's just a fraction this time. If I'm dividing, it's going to be a fraction that I multiply by. So -1/3. My starting point is -81. And my 0th term is going to be 81 times 3, 273. What's 81 times 3, 243. Okay, so recursive is the same thing. F of x equals f of x minus 1 times -1/3. And then f of 1 equals -81. And then we got my explicit equation, which is going to be f of x is going to equal my 0th term, which is 243 times -1/3 to the x power. X? Should be an x. Okay. And then we need to find f of 7, which is going to be 243 times -1/3 to the 7th power. Woo! Okay, so I'm going to put that in my calculator. We're going to see what we get. Let's see. 243 times, parenthesis, -1 divided by 3, parenthesis, parenthesis, to the, what power? 7th power. Okay, Siale. And it is going to equal -1. Sorry, I don't know what it is in decimals. Sorry, I don't know what it is as a parenthesis. -1.111111 repeated. Okay? Oh, I think I do know what that is. Or -1/9. Pretty sure that's what it is. Okay? So now it's going to be your guys' turn. This one's going to be a little longer because I think it's a little harder. So I'm going to leave it there so you can see those. So let's try that again. There we go. First, second, third, fourth. Sorry, I wanted to write that around there. 0th term. So my common ratio is 4. I'm multiplying by 4 because 3 times 4 is 12. 12 times 4 is 48. And if you did on your calculator 48 times 4, you get 192. My starting point is 3. And then my 0th term, well, I am going to take this number 3 and I'm going to divide by 4. 3/4. That's how I get my starting point. I take this term because how I get 3 is I took 12 and I divided by my common ratio, which was 4, to get 3. So to get my next term, I take 3 and I divide by 4, which is 3/4. So it's 3/4. Okay. And then I'm going to write, let's see, what am I going to write? My recursive and my explicit. Okay, so my recursive is going to be f of x equals f of x minus 1 times 4, and f of 1 is going to equal 3. And then my explicit is going to be f of x equals my 0th term, which is 3/4, times 4 to the x power. And then I need to find f of 7, which is 3/4 times 4 to the x, 4 to the 7th power. And if you put it in your calculator, I did it in Desmos, I got 12,288. Whew. Okay. The second one, term 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 0. My common ratio, well, I'm dividing by -2, which means my common ratio is -1/2, because I don't want to divide, I want to multiply. So my starting point is -24, and my 0th term, half of what number is 24? That would be 48. Okay, so I've got f of 1 equals f of x minus 1 times -1/2. And f of 1 is going to equal -24. And then I've got f of x is going to equal my 0th term, which is 48, times -1/2 to the x power. And f to the 7th is going to equal 48 times -1/2 to the 7th power. And this is how I got my answer. I did it 2 ways. I did put it into the calculator, and I got -0.375. I got this weird number, right? A decimal. And then I don't really like the decimal. I want to do it as a fraction. So what I did is I found out what 2 to the 7th power is, and I got -48 over 128. 2 to the 7th power is 128. And then 1 to the 7th power is 1, and 1 times 48 is 40. So just multiplying fractions, I would get this. And then I started simplifying it, and I just started dividing by 2, because I figured that would be the easiest. So I got -24 divided by 64. Could still divide by 2. So I got -12 over 32, and I can still divide by 2. So -6 over 16. And one more time, 3 over 8, so my fraction. And then I was like, really, is 3/8 0.375? And I did 3 divided by 8. And I got 3 divided by 8 is 0.375. So that's how I did it. I did it both ways on that one. That's okay, Alex. I was trying to figure out what you did wrong, and I didn't even look at the -2. I just saw -2 and just thought -1. So I kind of misread that too. So are we okay with that? Okay. So that's it. That's you guys. So the homework, before I start talking about homework, I'm going to pause this.